Put the kettle on! It's time to have a look at the latest editions of the Flower Ranger and Flora magazine. I'm Julie from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flower Start, the online flower ranging classes. So these are the two magazines that I have got. So what should we have a look at first? So I don't know whether you let me know in the comments whether you subscribe to either of these magazines. So this is the summer edition of Flora magazine, which the cover price is £4.75, and the summer edition of the Flower Ranger, cover price £4.60. So you can pick these up in the larger newsagents, but I happen to subscribe to both of these, so I think I get them a little bit cheaper than the cover price. Beautiful summer pictures, purples and yellows. There's a great combo on the colour wheel as they're opposite each other. So it's telling us about heavenly herbs, Jane Austen's flowers, English country flowers, and a constant sprite inspiration. So I don't know about magazines. Normally if I'm flicking through a magazine, I must admit my tendency is to flick through from the back first, but I'm going to go from the front. So beautiful picture here. The magazine is edited by Judith Blacklock, and she's also from Judith Blacklock Flower School, so she has designed some of these arrangements as well. Beautiful flowers. There's a hello and welcome. Flowers and nature have given Judith so much solace over the past 12 months, and I think we could all agree with that. Beautiful. Mix and match. One selection of flowers can be used to create two very different arrangements. So there's, if you look, identical. So this is something I quite like doing, is use your flowers long to start with, and then when you come to recut the stems and refresh the water, you could just make the same arrangement, but it will all be slightly shorter because you've recut your stems, or you could make something totally different. So this is a table arrangement on a wreath base, unless you've got some inspiration there. There's always some how-tos. This one's an easy design for around £7. So it's got all the instructions there. And can you see it's got these little water-retaining gel granules in there? So that's a great alternative to using flower foam, although this is still plasticky, and your gel beads will dry out. So you can either keep them in a jam jar when you're not using them, sealed jam jar, or just let them dry out and then add water on later on. Advice here about market trading, going to the markets, do's and don'ts. Wrap up warm, choose the right time, check the parking rules, be quick, da-de-da. And respecting the flowers. Now this is really good advice. Do you ever go to the supermarket and you can see people, you know, picking out the flowers, you know, the wrapper flowers and putting them back in, out, in, out. So when you're buying your flowers, you need to look with your eyes before you buy them. And this is from a wholesaler setup, but, you know, not to pick out individual flowers to look at them, not to pick the flowers up by the plastic outer edges. And when you come to put them back, you need to make sure they're standing up upright in the water. So tips for when you go to the wholesaler, but equally, just as a courtesy, if you're buying flowers from the supermarket, when it's a self-service stand, that you do make sure, if you're not actually going to pick the flowers up and buy them, that you do put them back in the water. And I always make sure when I buy my flowers, is if you can see one that's got, you know, all the other flowers are in the flower bucket, and you can see the one that's a bit higher, that could be the one that isn't actually in water. So I always pick the one that's a bit lower down. And of course summer's coming, so sunflowers. So these look like quite small sunflowers. Normally a sunflower you grow in the garden has quite a big head and a tiny lot of petals around the outside. So the varieties here are much smaller. They're probably only about that big. I would think about a gerber-sized head there. Weddings, aren't weddings just glorious? So, you know, you may not have a wedding on the horizon, but you can always get some good ideas for either table settings, you know, if you're having a family party out in the garden, or, you know, if you have flowers on your patio table. So sometimes treat myself in the summertime when we're eating outside. And then here, an arrangement, just 3 roses. So it may be that you might have bought yourself a mixed bunch of supermarket flowers, and as the flowers die off or you decide to rearrange them, you might just end up with 3 flowers there. Achillea. So this is what the yarrow is. So these are cultivated varieties, but you do find it in white, growing wild in the hedgerows. So doing something, again, you can see when you haven't got many flowers, you know, it's about investigating what the arrangement's telling you. You can see the classic line going up the middle of that arrangement. So leading your eye from the
smallest, brightest flower right down to the bottom, and visually weighted by a succulent at the bottom, and then they've woven the yellow hose pipe through there. And then lovely yellow again here, easy design for around £10. So you've got the gerbera flower heads, and then the cressipedia, the yellow balls, which also dry out as well. So they're quite a good buy. With the Galax sleeves, and if you didn't have access to those, they were sort of florist buy, that you could substitute those for ivy leaves. Pruning houseplants, that's sometimes, we quite often do that in class as well. Particularly, it's something I advise if you ever signed up for my 4-week email and pre-recorded video class, Flower Start. So sometimes, you don't have access to a garden, so you can't always cut greenery. And it's where can you get hold of greenery to put into your flower arrangement. So if you have got houseplants, they're quite a good way of saving, using those special leaves. And you don't need many. It's about making a bit of drama and impact. So this arrangement here around the champagne bottle, it's got 2 of the large leaves, and it looks like it's got a succulent and a skeletonized leaf underneath. And this arrangement here, they've called Second Time Around, an easy design for £4. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carnations which last for ages, and then some pink hypericum berries. So it says it's second time round because this is an ideal design for mature flowers. So when you've had a mixed bunch of flowers, you'll find your carnations and your chrysanthemums just go on lasting forever. So you could arrange them in a vase and enjoy them with all the other flowers. Then as the other flowers die off, you could then use the carnations much shorter. And here it's with a mix of pebbles there as well, holding them in place. Oh, here, 1930s style. Doesn't this look beautiful? So the constant spry windowsill vase, and then the collection of the deep pink roses, and there's some anemone there, stems of clematis coming up, and then the Molucella, bells of Ireland, and that also dries, and you can preserve it in glycerin as well. So it looks like there's plenty to read there. And the same sort of style as well. So it's a bit more freeform, this style of arranging, not quite so stiff as using flower foam and thinking about patterns and triangles and odd numbers when you arrange. It's a bit more working with nature. And then a beautiful bridal bouquet there. It says dahlias and roses. There's beautiful garden style roses, and that's a viburnum flower there, I think, with the thistles and the dusty miller and the scented lavender as well. And an arrangement in a top hat. So a mass of gladioli. So when they are in season, they are quite readily and cheaply available at local supermarkets. And here, the sunflower there with the petals on, and then for designer effect, picking off the petals, so you're left with the sepals, the green sepals around the edge. So quite often it's a good way of using up your sunflowers. If you've damaged some of the petals or they've fallen off, you don't need to discard the flower. You can use the bare flower, the sort of flower head there, without any of the petals around it. And what do you think about Gypsophilia? Are you a fan? And it looks like Bouvardia as well, beautiful flower. And when you buy it in bud, this will be something you'll probably get from the florist, rather than you'll be lucky if you find it in a mixed supermarket bunch. But the buds are quite cube-shaped, a bit like dolly mixtures, and then they open up into little star-shaped flowers. So summer flowers, I wonder how many of those you've got in your garden. So we did used to have this. I think this is I call that a purple loosestrife, but I'm not entirely sure that's the right name. I'm just looking down here to see whether I can see it. But I would love to have this many flowers in my garden. We have very few flowers. So it looks like it's a clematis, a hydrangea, a stilby. This looks like some sort of veronica going up, or then the heuchera leaves there. So you can see there that you've got all the principles and elements of your flower arrangement. The focal areas here with the larger, more dense looking flowers. And then as you move through your arrangement, the flowers get smaller, and then you end up with these little tips that just fade off into the distance. It works that way, and the same principle works that way as well. Heavenly herbs. So I really love it. If you've got herbs growing, it does make a lovely scented bouquet. So if you're going to visit a friend, you could chop a few flowers from your garden and then add greenery in the form of herbs. It'd be lovely. And actually mint lasts really well as a cut flower. Like all these things, it's trial and error. So it's a real contrast here. You've got the herbs here with that very, picked from the garden look. And then the very designer look of the Amphuriums, which again will be a florist bought flower. And they normally come, the florist will receive them, they've got little plastic bags over their heads because they don't react very well if you touch the waxy, the bract part, and you can stain it. And it's I think it's a very tactile flower, so you may well find them in your florist with the bags over the top of them to discourage you from touching them. So this here, Pastel Summer, a design for around £10, a very low design, with the clematis heads, some lichen sticks and some hydrangea as well. So that's been made with chicken wire that's been scrunched up into a low bowl. Oh, scabious. Look at this, dark chocolatey colour. Lovely. And there's some sweet williams in there. So it's really getting into the heights of summer. It's sort of like ice cream colours there. I love that one. And then here is an interview with Howard Franklin, internationally renowned floral designer, began his fabulous 45 career at the prestigious Constance Spry Florist in Mayfair. So I've not heard of him, so that would be an interesting read. There's some photographs, and it looks like pages out of the original books by Constance Spry. And book reviews. Dried flowers are really in at the moment, so that might appeal. Cut and Dry, the modern guide to dried flowers. So that is the Flower Arranger. It wasn't, that was Flora magazine. So this is the Flower Arranger, which is the magazine which many of you who are a member of a NAFAS flower arranging club will be familiar with. So pink's on the cover here. And it's National Flower Arranging Day on the 7th of May. So this is the occasion. It's like a bit of publicity, really. It started off, I think, as the Lonely Bouquet Day, which was an initiative by an American florist based in Belgium, who used to document on Facebook and Instagram bouquets that she'd made up from flowers she'd grown in her garden. And she used to leave them for people, lonely bouquet, take it home. And it's kind of been adopted by NAFAS, and it's become National Flower Arranging Day. And the idea is that you leave flowers in a public place and perhaps encourage people to join a flower club near you. So you might see them in a local library or cafes. Cut from the border. And again, if only I had a flower garden with that many flowers in it. I don't. I'm very envious of all you ladies who follow me who have beautiful gardens. But you can see here, this is a vintage bowl in the Constance Spry style, with the larger, more open roses at the base, and then the finer materials. That's Nigella. There's some forget-me-not there. Cornflower coming up at the top. Bedside table flowers, if only. I do not have room on my bedside table for any flowers. I just wish I did. And then very modern here. Looks like this is a crate that's been wrapped over with string. And do I see little test tubes? Yes, enough water tubes for your flowers, it says. So again, arranging without flower foam. So they wrap the twine around the top of the box and then slid the test tubes in, and then that's what is keeping, that's the water source. So all these flowers that don't like flower foam would work really well, just being placed directly into water. Ah, Chrissy Chung says she's a Hong Kong artist and designer who uses everyday materials to create artistic and dramatic effects with flowers. So is this bubble wrap? There's lots of silver decorative hoops. So these, quite often these pictures, they look absolutely beautiful, but you do need to think, those are loads of chrysanthemums there. I don't see any water source, so it is a work of art because it looks great for the picture, but that won't last at home. You could try dipping your cut flower stems in, have a candle and dip it in the melted wax, or put a bit of glue to seal the end of your stems, but that's not going to last at home. This one would be more practical, which looks like it's several glass vases, but it's a sort of swirl of aluminium wire, but each of those flowers are set down into the vases there. Look at that, that's dramatic, isn't it? The circle frame there. And perhaps something we're more used to here in the UK with our garden flowers, cow parsley. Looks like a lovely poppy there, sweet pea, and astrantia at the back here. Again, the purples and yellows, that great colour combination. So it's just a lovely hint, isn't it, about what's to come. See this little note there on the tin, healing garden. It's a lovely sentiment. Buddleia there, the butterfly bush, and stocks. Flowers and fabric. So what's happened here? It looks like it's a box. It's actually, I think, a tissue box wrapped with fabric. But it's got these little legs on it. It says it's a block of insulation board or polystyrene. Test tubes, fabric of your choice, some wadding, and some cane to make the legs. So they are little legs. So if you imagine you've got a block of foam, polystyrene, put the little legs in to sort of make it look like a coffee table, and then wrapped up with the fabric. And then this is, again, a classic, really, if you're looking at shapes in flower arranging, your massed focal area and then the line, bringing your eye up with a bit of active movement with the twisted hazel or willow on the edge there. Here, it looks like two inserts here. It looks like a wire cage. This looks like the biodegradable mesh. And it's been packed with, not quite sure what that is, a copper wire, I think. Is it curled up copper wire? And then the stems sit in a bowl of water on the outside edge. But these little twigs coming up here. And these look like bridal gladioli. The summer breeze, the hot grasses of summer. It's rather lovely there. So you could have everything massed together or separated out. And it's that way, very similar to that article in Flora magazine. One bunch of flowers, two ways. So you do want to see it all beautifully styled or separated out. So it's almost, I love this way, it's sort of botanical look to it all because you actually get to study the individual flowers. Whereas here, it's a stunning arrangement, but the individual flowers get a little bit lost in the haze. 24 things you need to know about Alstroemeria. Focusing on photographing your work. Now, using your camera is your best friend when you're starting at any stage of your flower arranging career, because it's nice to record your own arrangements. And also, if you're a novice, it's nice to photograph your work, and then when you look back on what you made, last month, last year, 5 years ago, you will see that how much your work has improved. And sometimes as well, when you look at a flower arrangement you've made, it looks beautiful in the flesh. But if you take a photograph, you'll be able to, I think it shows up the flaws more easily. So you'll be able to, just move a few flowers around if you felt there were any gaps. So if you haven't got anyone to discuss your flowers with, I would suggest taking a photograph and then having a look and seeing what that tells you, whether it needs to be adjusted at all. And you can see as well for these photographs, it's best to showcase your flowers if you are, showing your flowers in a group or with your friends. Notice the plain background, so that less clutter the better. So it might be that you have a wall, kitchen cupboards that you could photograph up against, or put your flowers in front of your fridge just for photograph. Choose a plain wall, take a photograph off the wall or picture off the wall so that you've got a plain wall, so it does really showcase the flowers. And the art of reading the flower arrangement as well. So you can see here, the eye-catching focal area at the bottom, and then as everything tails off to the outer edges. This looks like blackberries of some sort and a clematis trail at the top. And again, that sort of constant spry look. It sort of looks like a U-shaped arrangement, or a crescent almost, with one lower side and one higher side. A fresh floral column, silver birch. And then, how is that being suspended at the top? It says it's part flower arrangement, part land art. So it's, making a flower arrangement to put out in your garden. And it says here, it's made in a repurposed garden riddle. Now, I haven't heard that word for ages. It's a garden sieve. I can remember my dad using this. So it has a raised edge around the middle, and the grid across the top, and he would put his soil in and shake it and then take all the pebbles out. Again, a very classic arrangement here, very simple, just 3 flowers, but the length and the height brought in at the top with the longer stems, and then the leaves covering up the flower foam and just sort of breaking the edge of the container. Alliums, again the contrast with the purple and the yellow with the Acamilla mollis, and a very simple and petite little pedestal arrangement there, classic triangle arrangement. Wedding flowers, because it is the wedding season coming up, and some lovely yellows as well there, all very countrified look, and learning from the past. So Julia Clements there, look at the sort of seashell, the shape of that vase there. Cornucopia is the word I'm looking for. And then you be the judge. So if you want to learn and improve your competing techniques, it looks like this was an imposed class, but everybody got the same ingredients. So it's quite fun to go through and look at who you would award the prizes to, and you can pencil in who you went to give the prizes to. And then I think you have to go to the back page and see who actually won. But that's quite a good way of cementing in your mind the elements and principles of flower arranging, and what judges might be looking for if you are thinking of competing in a local competition.
I hope you enjoyed flicking through the Flora and the Flower Arranger magazine. Do let me know in the comments which magazine you preferred, or whether there was a particular article or flower arrangement that caught your eye. That's all from me for now, and I'll see you next time.